Hi, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Conscious Woman podcast. This is an episode in English, so I'm going to do a little bit of an intro in English, which usually you don't have. In this podcast, what I'm trying to do is to explore really the inner dimension of success and fulfillment to free ourselves from self-sabotage and find the confidence to build the conscious business or career that we love. And so in that context, I'm happy to interview some really inspiring women. And today I'm speaking with Evelyn Einhäuser. Hello, my friend. How
Hi.
are you?
Very good. Very sorry I don't speak French, but thank you so much for inviting me to this podcast and to
That's
be, yeah.
okay, of course. So, introducing Evelyn to those of you who might not know her, Evelyn is a certified Vini yoga teacher. We're going to speak later about what that is. A Vini yoga teacher. She's a Vedic chant teacher. She's a Vini yoga therapist. She is from Germany. She currently lives in Sedona, Arizona, in the States. She has lived in India for 4 years, studying in much depth the ancient yoga teachings. And her website is yogafораwakening.net. So obviously, I invite you to go and check this out. So basically, she teaches yoga individually and really as a way to assist spiritual evolution, which in and of itself makes it very interesting, I think, to speak about today. And so, yes, Evelyn, thank you for being here. And today I have questions around really along two dimensions for you. One is I want to go back into your background and how you took this path. Like you started as a journalist, and so your career as a journalist. And so I'm really interested in speaking with you about that evolution that led you to take the path of yoga. And also, obviously, I want to ask you some questions about that spiritual dimension of yoga that you are teaching and, helping people with, because, of course, it's not a dimension that we have explored or understood so far in the West so much. And so I want to hear more from you about how that dimension can help us fulfill our purpose and our potential. So, with that
Sounds
said, um, I want to start with your background. So, you were born in Munich, Germany. You studied American and Italian literature and then communication. And you started your career as a journalist in the beauty industry, if I'm not mistaken, right? So you worked as a beauty and health director and editor and producer and writer for magazines like Glamour and what else, Shape and magazines like that. And so I'm really curious about, because obviously it's a very attractive career from many perspectives, like in our current culture as a woman, to work in the beauty and sort of that industry. So then you turn to yoga. I want to know what happened there, what took you out of this career and into yoga.
Yeah. So I think what helps a lot of people and what probably many people can resonate with, I had a very stressful job. Like I worked myself up to be a director that was basically in charge of a whole section of a magazine and that produced like 12 to 14 pages every month. I worked really, really a lot. Basically, I was the only person doing this. So I produced, I wrote, I edited, I did a lot, and I was really stressed. So at that time, I first of all needed to find something that would help me with the stress. And then the other part of it was that I was researching health and beauty. And the longer I worked in this section, the more basically I was thinking that these concepts of health and beauty that we all hold, that they're not holistic, and therefore what we are actually recommending people just to put something outside on themselves or work on themselves just from the outside just didn't make sense for me. And the more I was researching, the less it made sense. And so both of it, like my stress brought me to yoga, and then I was exploring obviously a little bit more what is yoga and all these alternative healthcare models for my work also. And so the more I was researching, the less what I was doing, namely propagating a purely external version of health and beauty made sense. And then obviously also that whole business is connected to advertising a lot, especially in Germany. And so even what you're promoting is not necessarily always what you would suggest uh, um, as a
Yourself. Yeah.
person. So at some point, I really had a moral conflict within myself of what I was promoting, and also uh, I had a moment where I thought, okay, I just don't want this path anymore. And I think that's what maybe some of your listeners are interested in, because they feel that they want to be of better service. A lot of us know that consciousness has to change, and that the old ways of promoting uh, pure materialism and stuff like this are not working anymore. And then people basically have to make a choice in a way.
Mhm.
And how can they bring more consciousness into what they're doing?
Mhm.
And I was really intense at that time, in the sense that for me at that time it was always like I cut something and then I go out, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend to everybody, but it was a lot of how my personality structure is sort of functioning, that I then say, okay, I go out and I really quit. And people did not understand, because they thought I'm earning good money. Um, I'm invited to travel everywhere, which was true. I got all the products for free, so everybody was imagining that this is basically the most amazing life. But I really had a moral conflict, and for me at that time, I did not see, obviously I was trying to then promote more and more organic cosmetics, and I was changing a little bit within the structure,
Mhm.
because I was a director, so I could actually propose and suggest and stuff. But for me, it wasn't enough. It
Mhm.
wasn't holistic enough. It wasn't. There was no spiritual component, which was really important for me even at that time. And so I couldn't I I couldn't change it in a way that would have enabled me to bring more consciousness into what I was doing. So I had to quit it. But
Mhm.
many of the people that are watching, you don't necessarily always have to quit. You can try to bring your consciousness and presence into what you're doing. And actually, these days, I feel, um, after so many people are awakening and have nuggets of light and consciousness that they want to bring somewhere, there's actually a time where people go into the businesses and into whatever they're doing and try to change the structures from inside out. Whereas at that time I thought I have to quit and just go
Mhm.
out, and
Mhm.
not stay inside. But
Yeah.
I know that many people are always wondering, should I quit my job? Should I
Yes.
change professions and stuff like this? And
Mhm.
and not everybody has to. Some people can simply change the structures from within, which would be amazing for our society. Because if everybody goes outside and becomes a yoga teacher, therapist, a spiritual counselor, da 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 da, da, we are not. It's very difficult to change the the business how we do it, or the industries.
So, do you think that it could have been a different choice for you if this had happened now, 20 years later, or I don't know, when you left that beauty industry? But if it was today, do you think it might be easier for you to stay in and influence from within? Or do you think it's more of a personality and just personal journey thing, and everyone has to know inside themselves, should I stay or should I go?
I think it depends how strongly in the old paradigm or in the old something is based, and
Yes.
how much you feel you can change something, and at least we can try. And within where I was, the industry, because it's a lot about the advertisement and the advertising companies and big companies of beauty and cosmetics and stuff like this, they hold some power. So your capacity to influence is restricted. But I'm sure that there are industries where you can at least try to influence a little bit. Like, for
Yes.
example, somebody is in working in planning hotels, how can we make that more sustainable? Or if there's a wellness center or a spa, how can that be more holistic? Like all these different nuggets of society, really, whether that's art, how can that open up consciousness for people? And it's just that each one of us has a little bit of a tough road, because we come with a different consciousness, literally, and we are trying to, and it's a little bit like running against walls. So each one of us, I feel, has a little bit of a tough journey, because you are running against walls a little bit, because you're presenting something that people are not necessarily interested in.
Great. So for you, was yoga the obvious path? Like you knew right away that, okay, I'm quitting and this is my path and this is what I want to do? Or did you have to go through some soul searching to figure out, okay, what is my purpose and what is it that I actually want to do? How was that for you? Because I know that obviously at that kind of stage in our lives where we know that we need to move into something else, it can be quite a challenge to manage to connect to ourselves and know what we want to do. So I'm curious, how was that process for you?
So at that time, again, yoga was for me the method how I could I could work
Yes,
with
so you knew. Yeah.
the stress that I was experiencing, and also my body was reacting. Like, I had done some exercises before. When I started yoga, my body was reacting in really strange ways to that yoga. So there was something about it that was different for me, definitely, from the get-go. And for me at that time, it was really funny, because I quit. I still had some money left from from earning quite well, and I at that time did a yoga teacher training, but not to become a yoga teacher, just for myself, because I was interested in the philosophy and in finding out more about this. And I just, at that time, I just thought I'd do something for myself.
Okay, you didn't
And
have it was not a career plan.
it wasn't a career plan at all. It was just, I did this training for myself. And at the end of the training, one lady said to me, do you want to teach at my center? And I was thinking, I don't know, maybe. And then, so she just asked me, and so I started teaching this. But there is a lot of soul searching, because you have to find, even within the yoga, you have to find
Yes,
your nugget.
absolutely.
It's this huge thing, and it's very difficult also, because as with everything nowadays, everything is so boxed, and what
Yes,
people perceive of the yoga is just such a tiny part of what yoga actually conveys or is
yes.
about.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you are even there, if you demonstrate something that's not purely asana, then even there you're running against some walls, or you're
Yes.
actually
Mm-hmm.
bringing
Yeah.
bringing something back. But what's
So, yeah, go ahead.
what can help people that are listening is like, we are full of all these beliefs, right? Like, who we are and what we are. And then when we have some sort of when our consciousness grows or expands in any way, then you are moving more towards your soul, and you want to express that soul. And you know this because then you want to be of service in some kind of way. So the ego construct usually just wants to be in service of the self, and it's just about my life and what I'm earning and da 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 da.
Yeah.
And then something kicks in and it makes you really want to be of service in some form. So you know you're moving towards the soul, because on some level the soul knows that we are all interconnected, that all, you know, these kind of truths. So you want to be of service, but how to be of service? What kind of service are you doing? And then everybody says, oh yeah, you're love and light and love and light and love and light. And even though this is also true, it's not even about that for everybody. Some people are like, you know, like they're very good in transforming other people's shadows. So they're not necessarily the love and light type of person. Some people are it's very much about this unity consciousness. Some people are very much about bringing joy back into people's lives. So the flavors of who we are as a soul is different. So what you can ask yourself is, where do I really, like, what was the last time I really lit up? Like I really did something, or some, you know, just had one activity that where I felt really connected and just, you know, forgot the time and stuff like this. And what was it exactly about that excited you? Like for some people, it's the connection to the divine. For some people, it's when they feel the unity or whatever. And then ask yourself, what is it that other people should feel when you are there? Like it's the same usually, you know, you want them to experience divinity, you want them to experience that unity, you want them to experience that joy, and that brings you closer to knowing, this is my core frequency. I have experienced that joy or that whatever, and this is what I want to bring for others. So it's this, the soul frequency is this dual thing. You light up when this and that happens, but also when you see others, like when I see others experience their energy body or something that's beyond the physical self, I get so excited about it. It's for me,
That's
it's
your
the
thing.
same.
Yes.
Because it's that frequency. So you can ask yourself, or the viewers can ask themselves, when do I feel really connected, and what's exactly happening? Not just the love light, but I feel the unity, I feel the divinity, I feel this and this. And if I can give this to others, or healing, or whatever it is, then I feel very, you know, or understanding, clarity. There's so many nuggets of this expanded consciousness. What are you about?
Yes. Yes, I love that. So moving into your path with yoga, one of the things that we can read on your website is you write that what is nowadays perceived as yoga is a tiny, tiny fraction of what yoga actually is. What is the essential part of yoga that at this point in time we're not quite getting yet? And, you know, how can it help us?
So for me, there are two essential things of life that the ancient yogis talked about. The one is called bhogam. It means experience, enjoyment. It means we, at least as this conscious community, we want to actualize our soul. Our soul wants to experience something, whether that you call it the soul mission or whatever it is, but you want to experience something in this life. You want to actualize your soul. That's one part. The other part is apavargam. You want to realize the self. These are two streams. One is basically you transcend the notion of self, da 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 da, and you ascend, or whatever you call this all nowadays. And the other is you want to actualize yourself. You want to you want to be really this frequency that you are, that one soul ray, or that one ray of the sun, or whatever it is. So you have these two poles, no?
Yeah.
One is that you want to become more crystallized, and the other one is that you want to actually transcend and become. And yoga was always talking about these two. And what I'm finding these days is within the spiritual communities, or the ascension communities or something, it's always that this is completely new, and this is we don't know what to do and stuff like this. And I'm reading Yoga Sutta, and it's actually all there. And because he was coming from this timeless space, like really this infinite space, this is where his realization happened. So whatever is written there is actually timeless. But the understanding within the whole, context of a normal yoga studio is not, it's not really there. It's often really left within the physical sphere, even though Yoga Sutras talk about your journey should move into more subtlety. And the more subtle you become, the more you get access to the soul. And the more subtle you then become, the more you gain access to the infinite intelligence. This is even what's talked about when they talk about practice, first chapter. But this is all for some reason, it's all gone. Or we have then the Advaitins that talk about that everything is an illusion, and you don't exist basically, and you just go out and you just transcend. But for me, that's not the whole part. You don't only transcend, you also come back, right? At least many of us want that, to be sort of bridge builders. You want that spiritual part of you, but you also want to change something. You still want to create something. You still want to actualize your soul. You want all these kind of things. And so I often feel yoga needs a completely not new, but the old way of perceiving how rich this philosophy is, and how strongly it really helps. And when people often don't know the philosophy, or it seems like, ooh, but actually it was addressing different people and different stages of their spiritual development, from somebody who's really trapped and has all the patterns, and the ego concept is really making, like, it's very hurtful all the time, and they're suffering a great deal, from somebody who has already tapped into the spiritual dimension, and starts to understand, oh wow, something is happening, to somebody that has tapped more into this and is developing these powers. And then it's more about just understanding that that's also, it's also some sort of vritti in some sense. And then the last chapter is for the people that are interested in liberation itself. So it's this vast thing that's offered there.
Yes.
But
which we have not started to really tap into the vastness and understand the vastness of the teachings, right?
Correct. And also the practicality, that how much it offers us advice.
So actually talking about spiritual evolution and different phases, one of the things also that you share about is that you have experienced yourself some very intense spiritual experiences, and including while you were living in India, and not just living in India, but actually being deeply, deeply immersed in these ancient yogic teachings. So, my own experience is you can practice yoga or any kind of other spiritual practice for years and years and years and never get any sort of awakening. And so I'm curious, I mean, in my own experience, what made me grow in consciousness actually were not whatever I might have been doing as far as yoga, but it was my life challenges, So I'm really curious, when we talk about evolution of consciousness and awakening, in your understanding, is it like, is it really something we can aspire to and sort of make happen? Or is it a consequence of just living our lives as, as true to ourselves as we can? I mean, what about this whole thing of spiritual evolution, ascension, or awakening? I'm curious about your take on that.
Beautiful question. Thank you for this. Very, very intelligent question. Yeah, I think it can be both, but what's usually there if somebody awakens in some form is a real interest. And this actually also talked in the Yoga Sutras. It depends on, how much of your energy or your how intense are you actually really seeking? And this intensity of seeking is often also unconscious. Like some people, they are on a spiritual path inside, whether they obviously admit it to thousands of people or not, it doesn't matter. And so actually everything, there is some sort of blueprint for your life, but everything can contribute to that. So you might, some person, like you said, some person, just the life itself might bring you to moments where you have to surrender in some ways. So it's a little bit about how the ego construct tumbles down, or the perception of ourselves just as this tiny thing. So for some people, it's that life really knocks you until you surrender, and then you open up to more of your infinite intelligence without knowing, but you're surrendering to something that's not the ego, and so suddenly spirit can kick in, and that part of you can become stronger, and this expands your consciousness. Then you can, but you can also really, some people, they do 1,000 different modalities of spirituality, and then that's maybe their path, and this can also in some ways then lead them to some people do really intense I don't know, hallucinogetics and stuff like this, and it can open and work for those people, but I don't necessarily recommend this. But it's just like, even the people that come to me, usually they have gotten in touch with their spiritual side, or more of who they are inside as a wider self. And if I look at the journey, it's all very different. It's people where life really brought them to their knees, I would say, and the surrender. And then you had a path of surrender oftentimes. And other people, they just had modalities and something happened to them. And some people have been really practicing very, very intensely yoga, but not with the focus on the physical. I think that's the big thing.
Yes, because I was going to ask, I mean, you're saying, you might, reach awakening, or at least evolve in terms of your consciousness through your, deep, deep commitment to seeking and practice. But, maybe we have been ourselves, and we all have seen people who will, like, their whole life be like super into practices, and it's very, very ego led. So you're saying that surrender seems to be the best description of what actually happens when there's spiritual evolution, right? So how can we, if it's not through life challenges that you're brought to your knees, and if you're in your practice, what is then allowing you to surrender? Can you do that without being ever forced by some really challenging external event? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you know that you're not just in your ego, just doing your yoga, seeking?
Yeah, well, I would say, first of all, you need to find a practice that's not just physical. Like, that's, I think, the first thing. You need to find, you need to find something, or a teacher or somebody who teaches not just from that perspective also. Then what also helps is if you find somebody that has really worked on their consciousness in some level, because on some level this is all transmitted in the thing. But I think that's the most important. And because so many practices nowadays are just purely physical, because even the understanding of the energetics behind it is not there.
Yes.
Then it's very difficult.
Yeah.
But you can still, I know also some people that go, there are so many different yogic paths also. I know some people that did some intense jnana yoga, like just something totally different. But they really sat down with this question, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And it opened for them a doorway. And other people do very strong meditation, or even come from different spiritual traditions, or not necessarily only yoga, but even in Buddhism and stuff like this, they come from some very strong meditations, and the meditation can help them go beyond that pure personal essence.
Yes.
And then there are sort of frequency activations too. There are there are some sort of meditations or stuff you can do, that even some people I heard, they were listening to how's it called, some sounds that are higher in frequency for a long time, and that sort of opened their
I
door.
see. Yeah. Actually, this is maybe a good moment to have a little bit of a bracket around what is Vini yoga for anyone who might be listening and doesn't know about this tradition, which is the tradition that you have been studying in and that you are sharing today, and actually that has the spiritual dimension. Can you talk just a little bit about what this tradition and its spiritual dimension?
Yeah, so Vini Yoga originally is also a term from the Yoga Sutra, and what it means is that a practice is adapted to an individual, and to what the individual needs, which is actually the basic way that yoga was taught in traditional times, and is still taught in this tradition. It means that an individual has not to adapt to a practice. There's never like a series one or something that's for everybody. It's basically the person gets their own practice. Now this implies that the teacher also checks in what is actually the goal, not just but the goal of that student, and where is that student in their lives, and where's that student on their spiritual journey, and all these different pockets. And again, not all of us as teachers serve all of the pockets. So Vini Yoga, as you also know because you're also trained, is very strong also for healing. So yoga therapy, so many people come to get a practice that helps them heal in some kind of way. Then there are the people, to me come the people for healing, or they come the people that are interested in a spiritual path. And this is my nugget of this. But Vini Yoga can also be that somebody comes to you and is just very strongly only interested in having a practice that sustains them through their work in some kind of ways. So again, we have to start not being adamant in our perception, but to see where is this person at, and what do I give this person now. If somebody comes to me for yoga therapy, I will not necessarily talk about spiritual awakening all the time, but just help them in whatever ways I can, so that they heal, or that healing occurs, I should say. And other people come for other things. So Vini yoga is actually great because it helps to address a person where they are at and with the interests that they're having. Some people are interested in yogic philosophy, other people are not at all interested in yogic philosophy. So you have to adapt to the person where they're at, what they're interested in, and that's really the greatness about it. It's using all the tools of yoga. That's another part. Not just using asana, but really seeing what is the person, again, what is the little key for that person. Maybe it's meditation, or maybe it's chanting, maybe it's, I don't know, just visualizing certain things in their life that helps them in a moment. Doesn't always, or pranayama doesn't always have to be asana, actually. And in that way, it is representing traditional ways of teaching yoga. But we as teachers, we are just, because we are a nugget. So
Yes.
naturally, usually we attract the people that are interested in the same stuff. And so, yeah, that's...
Okay, great. Yes, good. I'm curious about going back to the process of spiritual evolution and awakening. And just, for all of you who are listening, I'm not interested in it in and of itself. I'm actually interested in spiritual evolution and consciousness evolution, obviously as a way to accompany what is going on the planet at this point, where we're clearly shifting as humanity is shifting in terms of consciousness. But I'm also I'm very interested in how can evolving our consciousness help us fully actualize our purpose and our potential, including in what we create and how we work and stuff. So I'm interested in, do you see in the women that you work with, do you see typical patterns that, and I know that everyone obviously is absolutely unique and you will have a unique way of working with everyone. But because this podcast and my work is primarily aimed at women, I'm really curious about, do you see typical patterns in the women that you work with that are blocking them in their ability to fulfill their potential fully?
Yeah, definitely. I
Okay.
think for the women these days, it's like in the 70s, women had a different, they had to come into work and they had to stand their grounds and stuff. It was different. And now it is about spiritual leadership. And women have been so strong, like the many women I meet, they have been so strong in the supporting role. And because they're many women, because there are also men, obviously, that are very empathic and stuff like this. But a lot of women are very strongly already attuned to what I call the field. Like, you go to work and you feel how your colleague is on that day, and you take this into your account. You take into account how your child is on the day. You are basically, a lot of women are very strongly empathic and very strongly attuned to what's happening in the field because of the role that they had for centuries, but also because many of them are a little bit more in touch with their emotional side and their spiritual side and their empathic, sensitive side. Men are slowly becoming this, but because of this, women have a tendency to put themselves, at the back in some ways. So the child, and this is more important, and this is more important, and this is more important. And so it's very difficult for the women to actually stand up and speak. There is some sort of, and put themselves in the foreground and even be visible. Like,
Yes.
I work with a lot of women that on some level say, I want to be visible and I want this. But if they are, it scares them to death. It scares them to death because it's so unwalked territory. And there aren't a lot of role models these days, like for that are these bridges yet. I think they're slowly coming, and slowly you see it more on Instagram and stuff like this, that are representing this, and that are females with a voice. And then the other part of women that I encounter, they're very into it, and for them it's difficult to bring that down into a form, and then have a clarity about the form, and have a clarity in speaking, and have a clarity in formulating their words. Once they are connected to spirit, they're more into being and existing and beauty and this whole world of, I don't know, but it's then they're lacking the framework and the clarity to formulate their message. And you see them struggling with this because they're so strongly connected to being and that frequency, and then they have to bring it back into the masculine, into a form of a program, a product, how our world functions, and then they're struggling with this.
Interesting. And so for these two challenges, what are some key things that you tend to bring to them, or that that can help us start to progress with these challenges? Again, I know that it's challenging to make just a one size fits all answer, but in general, what might you advise or recommend, or in what direction can we go to? So first, find that voice and that courage to step out and be visible and deal with the fear, and the other one to manage to go back into the masculine and find form.
Yeah, so the fast people that are very scared, it's literally about starting with something. It always looks so big, like, where do I start? And then I don't have thousands of
the lack of clarity.
I don't have thousands of products. And then these people, you just start with something that you like you start writing. If like write some articles or publish some stuff on Instagram, if writing is connected again to your core frequency, if you love doing this, if you feel, oh my God, I had to sit down and then maybe not. But then people should put themselves in front of a camera and talk, and just try yourself out a little bit, because we don't. Try yourself out and see what really lights you up. Not because necessarily you feel already I have thousands of people listening, but because you enjoy it. In that moment when you talk or something, you enjoy the talking, you enjoy the writing, you enjoy the painting, you enjoy this. And then get away from the notion that the next day you have to have 7,000 followers, and that you have to follow algorithms and all of what's told. No, better is you do something from the core of joy, because you really enjoy doing this, no matter if somebody's listening or not listening. But this is really you in touch with you, and you enjoy it, and allow yourself to build. This is something I learned with age. Allow yourself to build slowly. Just do again and again and again, slowly, instead of always thinking the next day it has to stand there and overwhelming yourself continuously. Actually, even if you don't need to publish every day, if you want to publish once a week something, do it. Just come from this frequency of enjoying, and find something that you enjoy so much that you can actually build it, that it's okay for you to do it every month, every week, but continuously over time. And the interesting thing is that you will find your audience, but this just takes time. And we as humans, we want 50,000 followers the next day. It doesn't happen like this. It happens, you come from the joy. And then over time, you slowly build your audience.
Mhm.
And so
Yes. Hmm.
that's the key.
I love that the joy as a starting point and as a compass. Um, and yes, it sounds really, really good. And actually, one of the things that I think connects to that I wanted to ask you about is one of the things I've been noticing in my own journey and around me as well, is that something that strikes me in for many of us women, I mean men as well, but because I know more about women, is this disconnection actually from our joy, but what I see is the disconnection from our desire, you know, that force that when you start tapping into it, it's, you know, it comes from really deep, deep down. And I think that the epidemics of, you know, not knowing and not being sure, not feeling like I know what I want or that I can do it, in many ways, it's this lack of desire or difficulty to tap into the desire. And because the desire, in a way, gives the fuel and the energy to persevere, right? Like you said, to build, to keep building slowly. Um, do you see that too, like that trouble that women, some women at least, we tend to have with really connecting with that force, that power of our desire, like this deeply hidden and held desire there?
Yes, it's again, it's about this finding your flavor, what lights you up and
Yeah.
what do you like other people. Like you started now a Conscious Women podcast
Mhm.
because it's important for you to empower women. So there is an underlying interest and essence that wants to help, and we need this. We need this right now, that women are empowered because we haven't been for millennia. So it's a really important thing that you're doing, but there is something in you that for some reason wanted to have that podcast in that way and help empower women. There is a passion there, there is a frequency there that wants to help this nugget of consciousness. And so again, it's really, yeah, it's about finding where you feel passionate, where you forget the time. Some people
Yes.
really, they have never done a video, but then they sit in front
Yeah.
of a video or something and they love it. It's just lights them up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Okay. So I want to now connect the all the spiritual dimension to the very practical aspect of things. One of the things that is most challenging, and I talk about it in pretty much every podcast episode actually, is for all of us conscious, you know, entrepreneurs, conscious, you know, whether we're coaches or therapists or healers or whatever. Um, we're not necessarily motivated by the pursuit of material comfort and success. And sometimes, you know, it goes into more of a shadow, I think, where we tend to neglect the material dimension of life. And also, it can be a real struggle for many to build a satisfying material, you know, base for ourselves. I'm thinking about, you know, the exhausted yoga teachers who make, you know, not a lot of money giving a lot of lessons and a lot of classes, and really struggling to see how they could make more money and how they could raise their rates. I mean, even when you actually own it, that you want it, which already is a first step, but even then, you know, it's very challenging. So I'm curious, like, have you experienced that struggle in your own journey, and what have you learned about that so far that you might share with anyone who's listening and feeling that struggle?
yeah, I definitely experienced that. I think it's a big part of um, a lot of us. We really go into the guidance and the spiritual world and stuff like this, and then money for some time at least seems so boring and horrible and stuff like
Yeah.
this. and you don't want to connect with it, and you reject it and stuff like that. And in that way, you also find that you haven't integrated these two worlds of existence, really. And you have to come back, and you have to also take care of yourself, like you say, and you have to be okay with it and comfortable. And if I want to be in my presence and offer that presence for healing or for sessions or whatever it is, then I have to be okay. If I'm struggling then every day to just earn my money or be able to buy
Yes.
my food, it's very difficult for me to be in alignment or just
Yes.
offer a good container space for people if they come. So it's essential. I agree with you. It's essential. And nowadays I feel that there are two things, like really find your different nuggets, also not just of the soul, but what your life brought in. Like you have counseling, or I have this writer's background which really helps me when I write stuff, because it's also that I enjoy writing. um, Other people have worked with children, da, 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 da. Watch what life has brought to you. Become really, if you become really aware of what kind of topics you as an individual bring together in your work, so that you become a bit more specific than, I don't know, the thousands of other yoga teachers, for example, that
Yes.
are out there or whatever. You find your niche in a way, like in nature, everybody finds their little pocket or niche. But that's really also not just because you say, oh, I want to create this, but because these are naturally pockets of life that you have worked with, or where you hold expertise. Let's put it like this.
Yes.
That's the first thing. And then I find that nowadays there are new formats that help people. So some people develop memberships, where they offer something as a membership each month to people, and that helps them. Other offer 12 weeks counseling courses that are pockets about certain things, and other people have products. And in this way, you need to find the pocket, what you like doing. And then I feel there's always the universe, and you should just check also what you are continuously asked. Like, apart from my ego telling me, oh, I want to be this and this, what are the people writing you? They ask you certain questions, like, people, now I started this ABC of awakening, answering some questions that people are asking me and writing me questions, not necessarily publicly, but writing me messages, asking me some questions. So I thought, okay, just put this out, not as a
Yes.
product necessarily, but as what I can do. So also always check in. What are people asking you and want from you? Do they want healing? Do they want clarity? Do they want counseling? Do they what is it that people that knock on my door, what do they actually want from me?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay, so we're reaching the end of our time together, because obviously, we could stay here for, as far as I'm concerned, 3 hours. But I want to bring this to a close somehow. Um, a couple of last questions. As a spiritual, solopreneur yourself, if I could use that term, what message would you most like to leave people with, as we complete today, people who are also in some way, shape, or form interested in, the evolution of consciousness, in healing, in coaching others, in building their own practice. What message would you like to leave them with?
First of all, I think that always continue your own journey, like, because this is always what you experience, you can pass on. So there is never an end to this journey. That's the one thing. And the other thing is really allow yourself to slowly build, don't
Mm.
this I want to say to so many, because I see and I have friends, don't be discouraged. Like if you do something for 2 weeks or 3 weeks and you put it on Instagram or something and it doesn't already have the resonance, please don't just stop it. Don't just become discouraged also in your being and feel very bad about yourself, or get the crisis in your, like, who am I and what, and maybe this is not working. Just continue small things, but continue. Don't be discouraged. Like, really need this. We need all everybody, really everybody with their little nugget these days, to bring some new consciousness into some sphere of existence. And this is a difficult job, because we come from a very structural,
Yes.
dense world. So don't be discouraged. Carry your torch, whatever it weighs. Continue to carry it, and see that slowly. And even if it's some people, and what I want to say also is, some people that never like my posts, for example, or never like anything, they still want a session with me. So it doesn't mean this is not a representation whether people are listening to you.
Oh yeah.
All how many people like it and how big their following is doesn't mean anything, because you can have a big following, nobody buys your session. You can have people that don't even like your posts but still ask you for a session. So don't become discouraged by all this craziness,
Yes. Yes.
popularity, whatever it is.
Yes.
Just continue your beautiful torch carrying. We need everybody in their little niche to contribute, and
Yeah.
that's beautiful what you do.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much,
And
Evelyn,
it's
for
beautiful what you do, so thank you for doing this. No, really, like
thank you.
contributing to consciousness and conscious women speaking up and offering a voice here. So thank you so much for this and doing this.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think both Evelyn and I, we really hope that you will have enjoyed this sharing, this conversation. And Evelyn, do you want to direct people to wherever they can find you, or is there any work that you want to talk about that you're offering these days, or anything that people should know before we go?
Yeah, right now I'm sitting on a program that helps people a little bit more with their soul actualization. I will actually see their horoscope and then develop yoga practices according to where their sun is and their moon is and
Oh,
stuff.
wonderful.
It will take me a little bit longer to develop that course, but this will be offered then in a course, and it will help people to step more into basically the soul imprint of who they are, and then have practices that are connected to their own report. But I also offer sessions. If there's anything, you just check out yogafororawakening.net. And I also hope that this was helpful and people take something from it. And yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you, Evelyn. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And we wish you all the best on your awakening journey. Bye-bye.
Bye.